Hello everyone, this is Anna, the Pinterest Pro, and I'm here with you today, and I am so excited that we have Gary with us here today. A little bit of explanation because of the nature of his work. There are not cameras within his business, therefore we're going to have audio only for Gary. What I will do in just a moment though is I will put his Pinterest account up so you can see that and you'll have something to look at other than just me. Are you with us, Gary?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay, yay. A little bit about Gary is he's the Vice President of Hospitality for Baskerville, and I'm going to let Gary tell you a little bit more about himself and his work before we get started here.
Great, thank you. So delighted to be with you today. My career path started in fashion. I was a fashion designer in New York City, working on women's evening wear, very luxurious pieces for Bergdorf Goodman and Saks Fifth Avenue and Vivienne Westwood. So it was a great start. And then I segued into interior design, and I've had really an extraordinary career that I've loved. And as you said, today I'm Vice President of Hospitality with Baskerville, and we're the 11th largest hospitality firm in the country. So we're really busy in all states, 5 countries. So it's an exciting place to be.
That's very exciting, and I think you'll have some great information to share with everyone. Gary has 40,000 followers on his Pinterest account, and so those of you that have been thinking about using Pinterest can get some helpful tips from Gary today. I met Gary through the Southern Inn Association, Innkeepers Association, and of course we quite naturally hit it off because we both love Pinterest. So Gary, first of all, could you talk a little bit about some of the ways that Pinterest has benefited your career, your practice?
Absolutely. When I started Pinterest several years ago, I mean it seems like forever now, it was because I was constantly collecting concept images and really old school folders, binders, and so forth. Then a young colleague said to me, "You should really look into Pinterest." And I had not heard of it at that time, but I went online, and the moment I saw Pinterest, I thought, my goodness, this has such incredible potential for a designer or anyone in the visual arts. And so I started really as a curator, and I wanted to pull together images that I thought my team could use in design. So I would be able to have photographs at the ready or pictures at the ready of cabinetry or mantles, whatever it happened to be. And that was kind of the way it started, but very quickly I began to see the marketing potential, and I began to develop a strategy for how I was going to try to maximize that.
That sounds absolutely incredible. Also, along with that, will you tell us a little bit about how, because I know yesterday when we were talking, you were talking about how even when you go on interviews, Pinterest benefits you. And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You know, that was one of the things I had not anticipated. I thought I'll create these beautiful boards and it will be good in terms of brand building, and it absolutely has been that. And I had an expectation that people in the industry would get to know me better, they'd have a better sense of my design aesthetic and so forth. So I anticipated those benefits. But what I had not expected is that when I began to interview, even with hotels, it was true of homeowners, and I just had an interview. This was a huge house I've been working on. I'm just in the final stages now. So the interview was about 2 years ago, but I remember that I had prepared, I had pulled my portfolio together, I had key points I wanted to make, and I walked into the room and they really treated me a little bit like a rock star, and it's so great to meet you, and we love your style, we're so impressed by what you've done, and we weren't sure you would even be interested in this project. And I found that I didn't have to say anything to impress upon them my credentials or what I had done. They felt that they knew precisely who I was, what I could deliver, and that I was a great fit for the lifestyle they wanted to live. And it was really a very easy interview, and so we spent most of the time, instead of me trying to convince them to commission me to do the project, we spent more time actually working on the project. So I've had that now with 4 projects where the moment I really enter the room, and this again, it's hotels, a furniture collection, and homeowners, so it's been kind of across all of the markets that I work in. They have a predetermined idea of my personality, my design aesthetic, my credentials, what I can bring to their project, and it really has fundamentally changed the way that we're doing business, I think in a very positive way. All of that based on the time that I have put into creating beautifully curated boards, and mostly focused on design. I would say my Pinterest account is lifestyle, because as you're showing their gardens, there's a lot of food, there's a lot of wine, there's travel, but mostly it's art and design, architecture, and that's obviously what I'm selling, and so
right.
It's been perfect.
Right. But these, and this is one of the things I tell people on your boards. I was talking to a potential client this morning, and I was saying on your boards you can put other things. For example, you have the gardens, which might catch someone's attention, and then it gets your name in front of people. So it really helps in that respect to have these other types of things on your Pinterest account, but keep within your target market.
It really does. The work that I do is luxury work, and I think when I look at my boards, I get instantly a feeling of luxury. And my clients get that.
Yes.
And on screen now are various pieces of furniture I've designed and interiors I've designed, so they have a chance to see my actual work, and, as well as artisans that I've featured, and they get a sense of the process, and I think that sometimes is the most difficult thing to share with a client. They are apprehensive about how will this process go forward, how will I have my personality reflected in the design, how do I keep a well-known designer from coming in and just imposing his or her design aesthetic upon me. So I feel like there's always a little bit of insecurity there, and being able to show them your process, that your process is about building up ideas, and it's layer by layer, and they're involved in each of those steps, and there's nothing hidden about it. There's nothing that they're not able to understand. And so I felt like Pinterest has helped me to kind of demystify that in a good way. You're showing one of my favorite projects now. This is a house I did up in Princeton a number of years ago, and this client was a scientist and really had an appreciation but not much knowledge about design, and said to me once that it was overwhelming. All the decisions that go into design were overwhelming, and I get that. But I think the project turned out beautifully, and it's very reflective of her personality. It's
absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. I loved the craftsmanship of this project. Just a lovely, lovely person. And, so as I said, I've been very fortunate. I've had extraordinary clients, wonderful projects all around the country, and so I'm grateful for that.
Well, this is gorgeous. And you also talked about using secret boards with some of your clients. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like that there are a lot of industries out there that could use the secret boards in some of the same ways that you have.
Yes, I love that Pinterest offers that for a couple of reasons. One is when we're working on a new hotel project, oftentimes we've had to sign a legal agreement that we will not disclose anything about this new hotel brand. So we have legal reasons why we can't share imagery early in the process, even though sometimes as designers we'd like to show what we're working on that's exciting to us. But legally we can't do that. So the secret board gives us a chance to start to create a feeling, a character, share that back and forth with the owner, whether they're hoteliers or private owners, or again a furniture manufacturer. It's a place that we can all share. They can contribute as long as we invite them to, and they can. Sometimes I'll go to the board at the end of the day and I'll go, oh, who penned that? and I, obviously you can tell from the logo, and then it gives me a sense of what is going on in their mind, what they're thinking. And sometimes I'll see an idea, and then I'll have a conversation with them, and it's interesting what I learn about them that they may not have been able to articulate verbally, but I see it in the images that they've selected. So by co-curating this private board, we're really getting to know one another, and it's all done in absolute privacy. Sometimes what happens, Anna, is that after a project is published, then I convert that board from private to public, because there are a lot of images that I know other designers would like to have access to, and that's always with the client's blessing, of course. But secret boards, to me, that was a great thing that they didn't do that originally, as you know, when Pinterest first started. You couldn't do that, and we all kept saying, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could, and they heard that, and I was glad they responded.
And it's a way for people that are working on the same project to share ideas, especially if you're not located in the same geographic region. So I just love it. And just to explain to everyone, if you are not familiar with the secret boards, you can have secret boards, which, just like their name, means that no one can see them other than yourself and anyone you give permission to see those boards. So the general public cannot see those boards. So it really is a fantastic tool. And I have to ask you, talking about that with the work, and it has to be secret sometimes and so forth. A question that I get a lot of times, what about your concern about, once you do put these ideas on Pinterest, people stealing your ideas? How do you deal with that?
Well, I had to learn a long time ago when I was designing furniture collections. That happened to me, and a couple of major manufacturers came into the showroom, and they took pieces that were very original. There had truly not been anything like it in the market, and they introduced their interpretation, what we sometimes call knockoffs, the following season. And in a couple of cases, it was the same design. I mean, it was so close that if I had wanted to, I probably could have, litigated. But in many regards, I think that damages your reputation if you become a litigious person in this industry. What a good friend said to me is, that's okay. Just be flattered that you're impacting the industry, and you're always moving on. So they're copying your idea from 2 seasons ago or a season ago, and you've already moved on. You're planning typically 2 seasons forward. For interior design ideas, I copy things. I try not to copy them verbatim, but I'll see something and I'll go, oh, I really love the way the scale of that lighting fixture fills in a particular room. And so I think all of us that are designers, we're always borrowing from one another. I borrow from fashion. I borrow sometimes from landscape design. And so to me, it's not plagiarism so much as it is, this is my interpretation of that idea. I'm going to combine it with other pieces. I may have a different color story, but it's really difficult to avoid any similarity to what is the dominant aesthetic. You're showing kitchens now, and all of these lovely gray kitchens. Of course, my clients are asking for those. So, I'm naturally going to go back to these boards and some of these images and show it to them. They go, gosh, I love that. Well, can we do something like that? And of course we can do something like that, because there's no legal restriction against sharing those ideas. So I encourage the young designers on my team to try to find their own voice, and I think that I've been successful in doing that in my 25 years of practice. My work has a look about it that is typical or indicative of my design aesthetic. It doesn't look precisely like anyone else's, but there are people that I'm similar to. And when I look at the magazines, one of the things that fascinates me is I can look at Bunny Williams, who I admire tremendously, and then I'll look at Charlotte Moss. Well, they're coming from similar places. They're both Virginia ladies. They both have been designers for 25, 30 years now. And so I see overlap and similarities because they are looking at the same traditions. And then I might look at a modern designer like Thomas O'Brien, for example, who's based in New York, and then someone on the West Coast, they may have a lot of similarities because, again, they're looking at the same resources, at the same people, and their sensibility is similar. So I don't think we can avoid that, really.
I love that answer, especially, what your friend told you. They're copying something you've already done. That's just the perfect answer, for that. And I know that, a lot of people do worry about that. And I always say, hey, if you're the best, why worry about somebody copying you? But I like your answer a lot.
That was what Chanel said, is what you just said. She recognized that people were essentially copying her things, but, she said, they're not Chanel, and I can't design for every woman in the world. Mm-hmm. So she was, she always kind of embraced that. She said, I'm glad that this look is available to more women. So she never saw it as threatening. And I've tried to take that same attitude. There are times when you go, that's my piece, when it's something that's really proprietary, that's truly unique and truly yours, it can be hurtful, but for the most part, I'm okay.
Now, has Pinterest helped with establishing you as an authority? Because I know you're an author also, and so, in that respect, has it helped to, establish you as an authority in the field to where people...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pinterest was my first social media foray. I really had not embraced that part of the culture. I wasn't doing Facebook or any of the other things. I started with Pinterest, and then I started to segue into some of the other social media platforms, and I had some credibility because of Pinterest. And then that same credibility began to work for me at design centers and industry events, and people would say to me, well, you've got a big presence online. Would you like to be on this panel discussion? We think you'd bring an interesting point of view. So I began to get traction in that way, and those are always really wonderful for a designer and for the firm that they represent, because it gets your brand in front of colleagues and potential clients. The breakthrough for me was in 2014, High Point Market, which is, as many of your listeners will know, is the largest trade market in the world. I mean, twice a year, April and October, High Point, North Carolina, 78,000 architects, designers, and buyers descend on High Point, and it's this incredible week when you see all the new collections, new introductions, a really exciting time. The market went to the internet, and they specifically chose Pinterest and looked at people that were influential design pinners, chose 8 of us from North America. I was the only guy, 7 women and myself, and they made us their official style spotters. And they really introduced us through their PR and marketing, which is enormous, to the world. And my social media, as a result of that experience, exploded. And suddenly I was getting lecture offers, product offers, brand ambassadorship offers, all kinds of beneficial things happened to my career. And it's continued to the day. I mean, this market, this October, I will be on 2 panels. I'll be leading the tour. So I'm still very much an active spokesperson for the market and still contributing. And it all really began because of Pinterest getting their attention, getting me, a role as a style spotter. And so, yes, without a doubt.
That is totally awesome. And that's one of the things I tell people that do a lot of blogging, because we say Pinterest and blogging is like a match made in heaven, because it does help for people to see the work that you do and help to establish you as an authority and all. Another question that I wanted to ask you is, how long did it take you when you started using Pinterest? And of course, you're like me, you've been with Pinterest for a long time, so the scenario was a little bit different, but still, how long did it take before you started to see some results from your efforts of pinning on here?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I was thinking about that. When I first started Pinterest, it really was in its infancy, and I remember that I would get very excited when I got a new follower. And I remember when I had 14, and I thought, this is, and it seemed like such a big deal. And I remember when I hit 100, and I remember when I hit 1,000. And then I started becoming more ambitious, and I thought, okay, how does one drive this growth? And what is it that you do to get this kind of explosion? And I came up with strategies for doing that. And I would say that the strategy began to pay off about a year into it. Is when I began to see I was getting positive feedback. Bloggers were accusing me as one of the top 10 pinners, design pinners to watch. And then I remember about 2 years in, Pinterest itself named me as a pinfluencer. I don't know if they still do that, but for a few years I was on that list as a pinfluencer and one of the top design pinners to watch. So I started getting visibility from all kinds of social media and blogs and so forth that I would not have had without the Pinterest. And that was about 2 years in, and it's just gained momentum. I still put quite a bit of time into it. I try to pin every day. You don't want to lose, you want your news stream or your visual stream to always be rich and interesting. As you can see for what you're scanning now, I've been a little bit on a blue and white kick. I've been installing it in a client's project, so I was really immersing myself in the imagery. And fashion and food are always there, and flowers and so forth. But I think when I look at this stream myself with fresh eyes, this is engaging to me. It's stimulating and it's delicious, and it gets me kind of excited. So my advice to young people, or young pinners rather, they could be any age, is to know that it's going to take a little time to get momentum, but if you work at it every day and you create great content, and I'm always very selective about the quality of images and so forth, it will pay off. You'll start to get momentum. I pin things that I'm going to buy for my clients, those soaps that are showing up now, for example. I've been furnishing this very large country estate, and Murano glass, and, a lot of these things are things that I've been actively putting into projects. So it's research, but it's research that I think is visually beautiful and
it is.
Brings attention, yes.
And I love the way all your pins are very neat, and there's not a lot on there that's distracting, and so people really appreciate the image. And I'm looking, and I did the general of all your pins here because to stress that point. Well, one other quick question: after Pinterest, after you get people clicking through to your website, how do you go about following up with those people clicking through to your website? Do you have anything in place specifically, or you just depend on them to call you?
Most of the people that have discovered me through Pinterest, if they go to my website, which is just my name, GaryInman.com, they'll end up looking at my blog, The Art of Fine Living, and they'll send me a message through my blog. And I've gotten quite a few emails, and oftentimes they lead in with, I discovered you on Pinterest, or I love your Pinterest boards. That's kind of always an opening statement. But when I blog, what I do, this isn't another of those strategic things, when I blog, all the images in that blog get pinned back to my board that's called The Art of Fine Living. So it's kind of, it works in two directions. So if someone is a Pinterest follower, they're seeing those images, and they go, oh, The Art of Fine Living, what is that? They click on it. As you know, it takes them to my blog, and they go, oh, he also writes a blog. I say that at the top of my page as well, so I'm hoping people pick up on that. I list my website at the top to help drive traffic to the website. But to me, it's just kind of the synergy between the two things back and forth. I noticed that La Dolce Vita, she's one of my favorite bloggers. Paloma, I started reading her blog probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I noticed how brilliant she was with the way she used Pinterest. And that was who I learned it from. I thought, oh, I see how that works. So I'm always looking at people that have a great social media presence. Mark Sykes out in California is another. He has a remarkable website, great Pinterest, and so forth. So I started watching people like that and learning from the way they were doing their social media, and I realized that Pinterest really benefited them, and so I put a lot of effort into it, as I said, and to me the thing is you can't neglect it.
No.
If you want it to be successful, then spend a few minutes each day. I probably spend at this stage about 30 minutes a day. Early on, though, I was spending some days 2 hours. I was really, after work, I would just kind of enjoy it, and I was building content. I just noticed I have 78,000 boards or pins. That makes me seem like a nerd, but
no, it doesn't. Part of that's because you've been on here for a very long time, and so they build up.
They do really quickly.
Well, this has been absolutely incredible. I appreciate you being on here so much, and all the things that you said. I hope people paid attention, because you're absolutely right. You have to be consistent, and you have to give it time. You're not going to see instantaneous results. And as you said, you have to be on there every day to keep it going. And that's what I always tell people. I'll say, well, what you have to decide is time or money. Are you going to really take the time to do what you need to do on Pinterest, or are you going to spend the money and pay me to do that for you? So, it's so true. And I love your work. I was just sitting here drooling. So if I seemed like I was kind of not paying attention, it was because I was busy looking at some of this beautiful work.
You're very kind. It's been very interesting. I'll tell you one last thing that I had not anticipated. When I began pinning my own work, then suddenly a lot of other people were pinning it, and I would go to the board. Someone quite famous, Carson Kressley, was pinning a lot of my things, and I thought, wow, I love Carson, and we all love Carson, right? And Carson is obviously liking my things because he's pinning my work on his boards. That was an aha moment for me. And now, of course, I see my things on a lot of people's boards, and it's very gratifying for any designer or artist when they feel like their work is appreciated. So Pinterest has given me that. It's been interesting. It's a living gallery. You've got an exhibit up all the time, and so I love it. I don't think I will ever stop doing Pinterest. I know, it's always shifting which social media is the most popular. Well, everyone's obsessed with Instagram now, and I do Instagram, but Instagram's not an archive.
Right.
It's of the moment, it moves, and that's it. With Pinterest, you can go there and you can actually search for things. It's really become an extraordinary, international archive.
Yeah. It's like to me, it's like a public portfolio for you also,
Absolutely.
And more people can see your portfolio, and like what you were saying, when you go in to talk to someone about doing a project, it gets a lot of that little talk out of the way, that you don't have to do, because they're already familiar with your work. They know what you do and what your style is. So that's absolutely wonderful. Was there anything else you'd like to add before we close out today?
No, other than to just encourage people to embrace Pinterest as a part of culture, as a part of their business. I think if you put in a reasonable amount of time, you'll definitely have a return on the investment. And I have no stock in Pinterest, but I just believe in it because it's really brought so much value to my career. So I was glad to share my thoughts today.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and you saying that about no stock in Pinterest, I get tickled because a lot of people think I work for Pinterest, and I don't. But I just believe in it because I feel like it's such a wonderful tool. And again, thank you so much for this. And listeners, what I will do is I will put his website, all his information up with the video here. And if you have friends that you know this would be very valuable information, please share it with them so that they can also hear what Gary has to say. Gary, again, thank you, and we will talk to you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.